I just want to hear.
So we're talking about 1977. There's all kinds of no, not punk rock. Before punk rock. So everybody, I had all kinds of musicians friends. I've been, I was in a prog rock. So I had written a 47-minute song.
I've heard.
And you haven't listened to it?
I've heard it. Yeah, I heard the
Congratulations.
The interview you did with was it Eric Lettering Out? Yeah, I heard you mention it about like a year ago. I listened at the gym.
It's crazy, right? So that's what I was into.
Well, crazy that you wrote it that young.
Yeah,
that's the crazy part.
I recorded it later, but so that's what I was doing. I was trying to get this band to play this 47-minute song, and it's not like a 47-minute. Well, you know what? Bands nowadays, the punk bands, they do fucking hard, crazy stuff. But back then, that was really extreme for the time, I think. And Pat loved that kind of music. Pat loved Queen and Yes, those were his two favorite bands. And Darby loved Bowie. And I was doing bands like Yes and stuff like that. So then one day, Darby comes to me and he says, "This new music, you got to check it out. It's called punk rock. You got to hear it." So I go over to his house and he plays me the Ramones. And I'm like, nah. Why? It's just 60s music, like not even the good 60s music, just sped up a little. I don't care. I don't get it. They're wearing leather jackets, big fucking deal. No. And then he played me Blondie. And I'm like, this just sounds like pop music for the 60s. Why? How can you say this is the new music? This sounds like going backwards to me. So I just blew it off for a few months. So and a lot of my friends did that, because actually, like Rolling Stone magazine was the big magazine that told everybody what to like. Everybody read Rolling Stone. It was like the biggest, and they had Johnny Rotten on the cover. So they said like Sex Pistols were like a big deal in the press, but America did not jump on it. They ignored it. So So a lot of my friends were playing all these different kinds of music, and they just were like, I don't get it. And it actually offended them because they didn't understand how could this music replace all this stuff. Like even, the Beatles got really advanced. So a couple months later, this would have been early 1977, the spring, because I think he played me those in like 76, Blondie, whenever the first, or maybe early, the first Blondie and Ramones were out. And then I heard God Save the Queen or Anarchy in the UK. And that was a different story. But I was like, okay, I have never heard someone sing like Johnny Rotten is singing right now. He doesn't give a fuck about what the key is, what the pitch is. He's fucking pissed. And I just felt it, And then, so then I was in. But a lot of my friends, they just never had that experience. I was not open enough to appreciate Ramones and Blondie, and I still probably wouldn't put on a Ramones or Blondie record. I mean, I record with Richie Ramone, and I love recording with him. And I know that, in bands, I played so many covers of the Ramones, and they're fucking great. But it's still not my thing. It took hearing something really extreme to sort of shock me out of, all that shit and plus all the bands that I was really liking, they all put out terrible records all at once. Yes put out a bad record. Emerson, Lake and Palmer put out a terrible record. Jethro Tull put out a terrible record. And I was like, I quit. I went and studied classical music. I was done with rock. I thought all rock music was bad. And then I heard the Sex Pistols. Earlier, you asked me the question. You said, did you already know? Because I said I was kind of studying him. And he goes, oh, did you already know there's something weird about him? I said, yes. And then I was thinking to myself, like, after you said that, I was like, it's crazy the way you look at my life in high school. It's like it's mythical to you. And then you might say, well, did you know? And to me, like I have what's called narcissistic features, which means I'm not a full-blown narcissist, but there's parts of me that I got from my family especially that are a little bit. So I always thought that what I was living was going to be mythical. I really did. And, as long as Darby was alive and after he died, I always tried to continue the myth. I never, ever said anything that wasn't true. I didn't have to. I said, this is how we felt at the time. And how we felt was we were pretty sure he wasn't from another planet. We were almost positive he wasn't from another planet. But he was that weird that you could almost wonder he was that different. And we didn't know why he was that different. I know now why he was that different. He was massively, massively depressed and traumatized. And he used his intellect to overcome that through trying to control his environment. So it's do you know who Caldwell Williams was?
I'm not familiar.
So you know about IPS?
Yes.
So IPS was started by two guys, Caldwell Williams and Fred Holtby. And Caldwell Williams was like a guidance counselor who started IPS. And Fred Holtby was more of an English teacher. And Caldwell was really about trying to reach the students and make them actualize and try to make them understand psychology and stuff like that. So a couple of years ago, they reached out to me and said they were doing a documentary about Caldwell because he has had this amazing life since starting IPS. He's worked with veterans to try to get veterans to heal. He's worked with businesses to try to get better out of employees. He's worked, there was another one. He's had all these incredible careers. He basically invented group therapy, which is nuts. So they said they were doing a documentary about him, and I got to see him. I hadn't seen him for 40 years. And even at the time, I was kind of like intimidated by him because his brother is Billy D. Williams, who was a famous actor. He was like in Star Wars, Landau Calrissian. So I asked him, after they asked me some questions, which they didn't use any of it for the documentary. But I got to ask him, I go, look, do you remember this kid, Paul Beam? And he goes, oh, yeah, of course. And I go, I have always wanted to ask you what you thought about him because I have my memories of him, and I wanted to hear what your perspective on him was. And he said, well, he was a very sick kid. And I was just shocked. I thought he was going to say he was so brilliant, he was so this, he was so that, because that's how I remember. He was so brilliant, so unique, so unlike anybody else. I didn't see how sick he was and in what ways he was sick. And I understand now, of course he was. He didn't make it past 22 years old. Of course he had an unbelievable pain inside him that he knew he couldn't live with, and he was planning to make a big noise and get out. He didn't think he could ever overcome it. So now I'm old enough to see things a little. I still think he's mythical. Doesn't change anything. But now I think I understand where he was coming from a little bit better. Just with those words, I was like, wow. All those antics, all those craziness, all those lyrics, all that getting on stage and pretending he was so wasted when he wasn't, all that shit he did was all just coming from this deep place of sorrow, And why he was so sad? You know what had happened to him?
His upbringing, correct?
Well, yeah, so I never always get this right. I think his father left them, and then his mother met a new guy, and this was the stepfather, and was really good to Darby, and Darby really loved him, and then he died. So the stepfather stepped in and died, and then his brother died. And that was around the time I met him. His brother died a couple years later. Never mentioned it. Never said he was depressed. Never said he was sad. Never said anything was wrong. Because he was portraying himself as, someone above all that. And it's weird. Like, I have a son that did that for years. Always portrayed himself as, and we figured, okay, he sort of is. He does everything perfectly. But we just wondered, there's something underneath the surface, though. The fact that he comes off as perfect, nobody's like that. So what's made? And so when he was 40 years old, he started delving into it. He realized, you know what? I don't even know who I am. I've been so busy being perfect my whole life. I don't even know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I like. I've just been being perfect for everyone else. And so Darby was, everything was a show. Everything was a show to make you. It was never any, it felt intimate. It felt like he was letting you in, but only so far, you know. About him, seeing him on the field.
Yes, the field and the group of people.
Yeah, that was weird. 10th grade, I met a couple kids. I just moved from another city, so I didn't know many people. I was sitting on the field in this giant high school, like Uni's a big high school. And I was sort of from the suburbs in Bay Area, and before that I was in the Caribbean. So it was just, I felt like a very small person in this huge like place. And then I was sitting on the field with my two friends, and I see this crowd of people coming across the field at lunch, and like that never happens. Like, what is going on? And it was Darby with blue hair, a Bowie haircut, blue, and he was wearing this like a tuxedo with no shirt under it, and on the breast of the tuxedo was what we called laser paper, which was like this weird reflective stuff that puts off like rainbows. So he was dressed crazy. And everybody, I was wearing a blue work shirt. That was I was wearing blue jeans and a shirt like I'm wearing now, but blue jeans. And my work shirt, I think my mom had embroidered on it, or my aunt. So embroidered work shirt. So there was this real California aesthetic, you know. I mean, I don't think people even thought about fashion. I guess people did, you know, but I mean, I didn't think about fashion that much, you know. And when I did see people like rock stars getting into a lot of fashion, it felt pretty awkward to me. It felt kind of awkward. You know, so there he was making a powerful fashion statement, and that would have been 1974 or 5, probably 74. You know, because that was my first year at a high school, and so I never forgot him. You know, I later when I met him, I was like, okay, that's that guy. You know, nobody thought he was cool. People were afraid of him, but nobody thought he was cool. People just said, stay away from that weirdo. And the weirdos that he's friends with. I mean, that's as far as it went. They were just the weirdos. And they were the weirdest people in the school. Because they were willing to walk around with blue hair. Nobody did that. So it's not like he was the popular kid. But think about when you're in high school. Maybe you were the most popular kid. But you go to sort of like, you know, maybe you have a class with them. Then you go up to them at lunch and you're like, hey, man, how's it going? And they're like, you're going to act like you know me? You know, that like, you don't know me. And they'll say something fucked. And usually, if you're me, you won't have anything to say back because they're good at it. They'll say something like, what do you want, loser? And you'll be like, nothing, just saying hi. You keep going. So he had that, you know. But, you know, what do you want, loser is not that witty. I mean, it's effective. But he was more witty. He would say, so when I tried to strike up a conversation with them, and I said, oh, I hear you're really into Bowie, which is really a bad way to start a conversation. It's like stupid as fuck, really, you know. And he looked at me and he said, yeah. And I said, what do you think of the Rolling Stones? Because I'd already been into prog rock, but then I had gone back, even though I was really into this advanced, complicated music, King Crimson, Genesis, all this really super complicated music. My friend had introduced me to the Rolling Stones, so I had gone backwards. The Rolling Stones are really based in blues. And so I had simplified. I had understood, and Darby had turned me on to Bowie was later. So I had already gotten into simpler music. I wasn't strictly prog. So I thought, you know, maybe he would appreciate the Stones. And he just looked at me and said, yeah, Mick Jagger's really cool. And somehow I didn't think he actually meant that Mick Jagger was really cool. I think what he actually meant was, you're an idiot. And then I was like standing there awkwardly, and he was talking to someone, he was talking about Iggy. I never even heard of Iggy Pop at that time. They're talking about Iggy this, and I was like, I was supposed to know who Iggy was. I'm like, I could tell Iggy was important, but I know Iggy. So I said, "Who's Iggy?" And he said, "A faded pop star." And then he just kept talking, which is just a weird way to talk. What do you mean a faded pop star? I don't mean faded like faded. I mean like faded. So yeah, I wish I could have all the examples of how he would just say things that made it very hard to respond to. It just shuts you up, you know?
Yeah.
So Pat went away to Jesus school. And I didn't really realize this at the time. But I had just got into IPS. And IPS, it's 200 people in that school. IPS is a special school. So there's always been these schools for the people that get thrown out of school. Continuation. I don't know what it's called. It's like
continuation school,
drug addict school, loser school, you know, like not like you're too stupid, you're just bad.
Yeah.
But IPS wasn't really like that. IPS was supposed to be a combination of that and also smart kids who wanted to do it differently. And I had the guitar player from the Arc Squared band, the Arc band that did that piece. He was an IPS, and they would talk about it. And it was fascinating. It was fascinating because it was a whole philosophy. And I was like, I mean, regular school doesn't have a philosophy. It's like I pledge allegiance to the flag, get B's and A's on your report card. What is the other philosophy? Don't be tardy. You know, get a note. There's not a philosophy. And you study, you know, learn how to be a good American. You know, it's like there is no philosophy. And IPS, it was you could just tell that the IPS students would talk to each other and it'd be like in a different language. It's kind of like AA people. When you hear AA people talk together, if you know any sober people, and they start talking, you're like, you could just tell that they'll say their words, a word for them means something different from everybody else. Like they'll say their disease. And like we think of disease as like, oh, you caught a disease. Their meaning of disease is something else. So yeah, the IPS people had their own language, they had their own philosophy. It was really fascinating. So I signed up for IPS. It was a small school, and I would see him around. And I went up to him like that. But dude, I'm telling you, it was him and the son of one of the founders of the school, Fred, whose name was Doug, and like 4 girls, Joelle and Nikki and a couple other girls. There's only like 6 of them. But and all the kids at that school were really interesting. They were all interesting. But they just had a glow about them. They had a glow about them. And I don't remember why he started being nice to me. But I started going over to his house all the time. His house was like right down the street on Barrington. IPS, there was a bunch of bungalows right on Barrington. And then if you just went down Barrington past Santa Monica Boulevard, right past Santa Monica Boulevard, he had an apartment right on the corner there. And West LA is about 5 miles from the ocean, maybe, right? Santa Monica, yes. And then West LA is like right after that. And Santa Monica Boulevard goes right to the ocean. So we would go down there, and I think it was probably about Bowie. Like, I've realized, like, I could just tell that there was a real gap in my education because they spoke about Bowie so fervently. And, I heard Suffragette City on the radio, and I heard Changes on the radio. And if that's all you know about Bowie, Suffragette City, Changes, But then you had Space Oddity. That was a hit too. That's a pretty cool song. Now there's 3 songs. And then just the way they're talking about it, like they're in a cult. And I was like, I want to know more about Bowie. So you go over to his house, you start listening to Bowie. And then you go over to his house and you drop acid and listen to Bowie. And then you really understand Bowie. And he was right. I mean, to this day, I would say Bowie is one of the top 3 most brilliant outputs of any single person. And the way I kind of judge that is there's some people that put out like perfect albums, and they're the best, like the Germs. There's one of them. There's only one album. If the Screamers would have done the Screamers demos, I wish it sounded a little better, but You know, the Weirdos, one perfect album. Deadbeats, two pretty damn perfect albums. Sex Pistols, one perfect album. Some people put out 3 or 4 perfect albums where you're just like, this changes my life. I can listen to this album all the way through. Some bands have put out like 5 albums like that. But Bowie, I would say he put out 8 or 9. And that's like, now there's bands that put out that many. Like you might say, well, the Beatles put out 8 or 9 or 10 records. Yeah, but that's 4 fucking people. So think about, like, instead of like a 65-year-old person talking, now who do you know? I mean, probably it's impossible to say, that put out like a string of albums. It's one great album after another, just brilliant. Can you think of anyone like that? You will eventually, you know. I mean, you know, everybody hates on NoFX, but someday someone may look at NoFX as being one of. I mean, Black Flag put out 3 or 4 great albums. There's some bands that I like. I love Susie and the Banshees. I think they put out an album with one amazing song on each record, and that's different. Now you have longevity. They're still good. Wow, you've been together 10 years and you just put out a song I love, and then you go listen to the album. That's like, that's the only song on there that I like, you know. So anyway, just as far as greatness, I'm talking about how great Bowie was. So they were right, and so I joined that cult. But Darby wanted more than that. Indoctrinating you into Bowie was to get you to then be a follower of him. He would think, sort of, well, now I own you. And he would even write letters like that letter up on the wall. And I found out some of his tricks. Like he would write you a letter, and underneath he would write a series of numbers, like a zip code or a trademark or something. And that was called a program number, and that was supposed to get in your head, right? Like that was supposed to be a message. And then he would put a little sparkle on there, like a little glitter, like fingernail sparkle, and that was supposed to somehow. So he had these little tricks. And I was writing music. I was writing songs. I wanted to know how to brainwash people too. I had put things in the arc. I had put things in the arc before I ever met him, where I was playing with the idea of subliminal messaging, you know? Because I read this book. There's a lot of books about advertising in the 70s about what fucking advertising people were doing to get people to buy shit. And it was fucking sneaky. And you wouldn't think it would work. But there are tests to show that it did work. So he was trying to do stuff like that. And I wanted to know how to do that too. But I never was able to just get that glazed look in my eyes. And like most of the kids didn't, most of the other ones didn't, but we all seemed like we did. And friends of mine were like scared. They were scared that I was getting into a cult. But think how weird this is. People think it's a cult. The guy who started the cult is 16 years old. That's why I say he's exceptional. He's not like anybody else. That's trippy. And then punk rock started. And the Germs, everybody knows, the Germs couldn't fucking play at all. They just got on stage and tried to make a mess. They just tried to make a riot or a catastrophe or break things and make a lot of noise and get high. And which I think is a great idea. And that was the Germs' reputation for the first year. But at the same time, he put out like a little booklet, of his lyrics. And you know the Germs lyrics. So the Germs, this fucking food fight catastrophe on stage, and a few people read those words and went like, wait, this is that guy? Like, these lyrics are like really brilliant. And the screamers were, Tommy Gear was one of those people. And he read Sex Boy, and he was like, oh, no way, we're going to put that to music and do it. And when you read the lyrics to Sex Boy, written by, guess by that point he's 18, right? He died in 81 at 22. So yeah, he's 18 when he's writing those lyrics. And you know, I take it anywhere, anyhow that I can. I'm the fucking son of a Superman. No, that's a fucking great line. What do you mean I can take it anywhere, anyhow that I can? Take it? Like, okay, like there wasn't a big gay movement. Like when I read that words now, I could take it anywhere. That sounds like a bottom. I can take it anywhere, anyhow that I can. That sounds like a bottom to me. But back then, nobody thought of that. Nobody thought of him as gay. Nobody thought of anybody as gay. It was all in the closet. So what he really sounds like is, oh, he's just a stud, right? I've got a weapon. It's as deadly as life. It's the well-trained tool of a master. I mean, his fucking lyrics are great, right? And Tommy Gear, to his credit, saw those lyrics. Even though they're just a food fight, he saw those lyrics, and people started to know that there was more to him, you know? Plus, one-on-one, he would drop his act. And he would talk to you. And sometimes he would give you a hint of vulnerability. And when you got that, you just felt like I remember one time in high school, like he used to take us places in high school. Like he took me, it was nobody else could go. We went to this fair at UCLA and we took acid, of course. And afterwards, it was such a good time. You know those things that spin around really fast and you're stuck to well, we did that on acid. That was good. You should try it. No, you shouldn't try it. But we did all kinds of shit like that. And then I got home and we were oh yeah, I forgot about bad thing. He'd also been molested. By several adults. So I remember we got home. We were taking the bus because maybe I had a car. No, and I dropped him off. And we'd spent the day together. And I loved him. I felt this love for him. Now, in IPFs, everybody hugged each other. So, and that was another thing people thought we were weird for, because the kids in high school did not hug each other. We were all hugging each other. So weird. So I tried to hug him, and he just stood there with his arms at his sides. He didn't hug me back at all. And then I went and I left. And so, what was that? Did he not love me? I don't know. We spent the whole day together on acid, no bonding. I mean, I saw him all the time. And I just wanted him to know, it's awesome spending time with you. We hug at school, but nothing back, you know? Supposedly, yeah, he was molested several times. Now, molested? He was technically molested for sure because he was underage. But as you know, when we're underage, lots of times we're all fucking all for it. So I don't know what to... he never, ever confided me in any of that stuff. And this is mythical stuff to me. To me, and as it was happening, it felt mythical. It felt like a story. It felt like, it was weird, like meeting him. I lived in Connecticut and then we moved to the Caribbean when I was like 10. My dad quit his job at the computer center at Yale and became an underwater photographer and be a super successful underwater photographer. So I was already living a myth. I had to learn Dutch. I was scuba diving all the time when I was 11 years old, and I was already writing songs when I was 12. I thought I must be very important. This is all going to be, I'm going to be famous and all this. I always thought that. And now I'm glad it didn't turn out that way. I mean, to you and 10 of your friends maybe think it turns out that way, but it didn't turn out that way because I'm really glad the way it turned out. For me in my life, what I found out after I went for years, why didn't I get famous? Why aren't I rich? Why didn't I get all those things that I thought I was going to get when I was a kid? I found out because you didn't want that. What you actually wanted, and you didn't know it, was you wanted to make music all day long. That's what you like. Everything else you hate. Doing interviews is okay. I don't mind it. But schmoozing with record company executives and going to fucking things with ties and red carpet shit, it's like, it just feels awkward as fuck. I don't know if I'm on the spectrum. I'm definitely introverted and I'm really uncomfortable doing business. All I want to do is make music all day long and then go home to my wife, And that's what I got. That's what I've gotten for the last, and that's like not an easy thing to get. That's a hard thing to get. That's hard. And people say, well, but you have to work. Do you like the music you work on? And if you're open to music, every person that walks in is fucking so a joy to do. The times it gets hard for me is when people have expectations that they're going to be fucking stars. That just makes me nervous. Because it's just a roll of the dice, you know? But like, your band, you come in, someone will say, well, like, you like recording like this hardcore punk rock? If I did not know you guys and I went and someone played you for me, I don't know if I would get it. I don't know if I would get it. Working with you, I fucking love every note. I have to be in it. That's what I love. I love being in it. And that's why all the bands that I love, I was in most of them, you know, with some exceptions. You know, I don't know if I would have ever discovered Elliott Smith. You know, I don't know if I ever would have discovered him. But they brought him up. They recorded his last album up there. They played him for me. And I was like, holy shit. This guy's like, you know, if you ever, as a guitar player, tried to play an Elliott Smith song, you would find out. It's fucked up what he sounds like he's just singing like really depressed songs. But he's fucking advanced as fuck. And I really like his music. But I met him. I hung out with him. It just makes a huge difference for me. There's a very few artists that I've discovered that I didn't wind up being connected to in some way. That is not a boast. That's actually something I've come to understand is actually a weakness to a degree. Because there's so much music I haven't been able to appreciate that people love. You know, that I hear and I go, yeah, the band I recorded last week was better than this. That's what happens to me all the time. People say, hey, check out this band. Yeah, I've recorded this band. I like them better, and nobody's heard of that band. Fuck that band. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I'm like fucking on your side. And the band that's doing what you're doing, like not as well, fuck them. Okay, so it's kind of a weakness, but it's also a loyalty and a strength. They put out Forming. Everybody loves Forming, but come on, it's just like so, like that is barely. I mean, it's punk rock and how fucking just pathetic it is, but the lyrics are fucking cool in a way, and it's his like what is the word for that mental illness when you think you're God? I'll think of it. You know, he's like sort of demented, like I'm your new savior thing. You know, it's like, how dare you? You know, who the fuck do you think you are? Just like, I am your savior. Rip them down. Hold me up. I'm your gun. You know, like, whoa. So they put that out. It was funny and everybody liked it. But then, you know, they're getting better. And they got Nicky Beat in the band. Before that, they had Cliffhanger. He was a good drummer, but he was a catastrophe. He wasn't there for long. They got Nicky. Nicky was solid. And they started getting good. And Nicky, I played with Nicky before. Nicky would say, do that again, play this. He would help with the arrangement. And Pat got good incredibly fast. I mean, in high school, he was somehow figuring out Yes songs, like at the beginning of No God. He was figuring out that shit. So Pat is super talented, I tell everybody. There is a reason Pat is in Nirvana and the Foo Fighters. It's not because they were honoring him for being in the Germs. It's not because, you know, he's nice. It's like he is incredible. And he's incredible in the sense that he never does the wrong thing. He always will, you give him a piece of music or he'll write a piece of music and he will do the right thing. And his right hand, I mean, you're a guitar player. I mean, his right hand is doing things even faster than Pat. Really fast and really tight. That when he does those 30-second notes, they might be 30-second notes at 190 beats per minute. You know, but Pat's doing it slower, but they're flawless. They're always flawless. You know, bands come in there here all the time doing, and you know, the bands that pull that off perfectly, it's a really cool sound. You know, Pat's always, his right hand is really, really tight. One of the best I've ever played with. And then he never does the lame thing. So he got good really fast. They got Nicky Beat. Lorna, she's smart. And she, you know, in an environment of Pat, she was able to step up and play. And that allowed Darby to continue to be. Darby discovered shortly after forming, like a lot of the people in punk bands, Darby wanted to be Bowie, and he thought he could sing. And he pretty quickly realized, oh shit, like not only can I not sing, I can't move, and I feel really just nervous and horrible on stage. He realized he couldn't pull off Bowie. What he had to pull off, he had to switch fast to Iggy. And not even the Iggy, the worst of it. The Iggy, when Iggy's so wasted he can't play. That Iggy. He has to go straight to that. So, he couldn't really, but, it became a style. It became a style of like an incompetent style. And I don't say that. I say that with all love because, we all love the Germs. It is what it is. And they were starting to get better. And Geza, they went to Geza, who had produced the Dead Beats. And they heard that Geza had worked in studios and knew how to do stuff. So Slash Records put them in the studio and hired Geza. And Geza was supposed to bring an amp and he forgot. So they plugged Pat straight into the board. They didn't have a fuzz box. So it's got a weird sound. It turns out weird sounds, but pretty good. That single is pretty fucking good. And it went from forming to that. And actually that single's not just good. That single's fucking incredible. It's as good as anything that England ever produced. I would say No God, Lexicon Devil, Circle One is, for me, right up there with Anarchy in the UK, God Save the Queen, and whatever shitty third song they had. What would be their third best song? Because those were the two best.
Pretty Vacant, probably.
Maybe, right? I mean, for me, and that's a tough one because Sex Pistols are awesome. But the fact that they even make that sentence. Now, the three favorite songs from a New York band, Sheena's a punk rocker? Pick your three favorite Ramones songs? No way. Three favorite Blondie songs? No way. Three favorite Patti Smith songs? I love Patti, but dude, that single, that's an incredible single. And you know what else is an incredible single? Fucking Weirdo's Life of Crime, style music, and then the next one, Solitary Confinement, and We Got the Neutron Bomb. I put that against anybody. And the Deadbeats 4-song, Brainless and Kill the Hippies and Final Ride, incredible. These are like this is, sometimes you hear some music when you're young and it fucking ruins you for the rest of your life. It's like, all I care about is doing something as good as that. Heart of the Sunrise by Yes damaged me. If you ever want to hear, listen to Heart of the Sunrise, the whole song really, and you go, oh, Paul, that's what Paul's been trying to do, that song. Okay, so as obviously, if they were able to make that single, they were getting better, and they were starting to do shows. And I remember he asked me to come to a show, and this was when I was still in the, the punk rock thing ain't working for me. And he said, well, come see us play. And he's like, my friend. So, okay, I'll go see you play. So I went to the Whiskey. And I think it was an afternoon show, oddly. And the first band was the Deadbeats. And me coming from prog rock, the Deadbeats drummer is one of the best drummers I've ever heard, period. And he was playing like Phil Collins or like the prog drummers, because that's what he was coming from. He was coming from prog rock. And they were coming from this advanced jazz, super intense musical place. But their singer couldn't sing. And the singer had this nasty attitude. So they had a prog rock rhythm section with a singer like Darby. So punk rock. And then you had Geza, who was a guitar player that was very limited. And you take Geza and Scott, the singer, and you put the rhythm section of the Deadbeats, which was incredible, as good as King Crimson's record. They were literally as good as King Crimson's rhythm section. I mean, I'm not even joking. And you put Geza and Scott together with that. And I'm watching this, I'm like, there is a place for me in this music. I misjudged it, and I didn't misjudge it. I was not exposed to anything like Dead Beats. And you know what? I don't know where else in all of punk rock. Maybe if I would have been in New York and if I would have seen television, because I never, and Richard L. and the Voidoids, or if I would have been in London and seen the Sex Pistols and the Clash. The Clash was a band which I never could understand or appreciate. I confess, I admit, it's my own failing. Maybe I would have, but seeing the Dead Beats, fuck, there's a place for me in this music. That was incredible. And they had 10 great songs. 12 great songs. Dull. Please Don't Send Me to Jail. The 4 songs Hooked on Jailbait, which you might not be able to pull off now, but was very funny and is satirical. There was Dull. All those songs were in the set. Let's Shoot. Maria, all the songs. You watch 12 incredible songs and like, okay, I'm in. Then the Germs come on and they're fucking better. Why are they better? Because they're in the next century. Like the Dead Beats have one foot in the past, the King Crimson Rhythm section, and one foot in the future, Scott and Gaza. The Germs are all the way in the future. And they're like, it doesn't fucking matter whether we can play or not. Are you having fun? Yes. Do you like our band? Fuck yeah. Now, we may get around to playing a song. We're starting to get good. Check out this one. And then they play Lexington Devil. I was like, oh, yeah, that's starting to sound pretty good. And I like that song. I always like that song. They can kind of play it. Nikki's a good drummer. And they launch into in fact, they're kind of killing it. What's hard to understand is like, well, Darby's not singing with everybody. He's like kind of off and crawling around. So for me, still coming from a musician's point of view, I'm still not, and Lorna's just laughing and kind of playing along. As from a musician, I'm like, well, but Pat and Nikki, they're good, right? It's almost like the Dead Beats in that sense. Like you got 2 people kind of pulling it off. But it was really like long periods where Pat's just standing on stage feeding back and something is going on. Darby's trying to get some drinks or pills, or he's trying to get this girl to give him a button that he wants, or he's trying to tell somebody to break the toilet in the bathroom with the whiskey. Something is going on. People are having a girlfriend and a boyfriend in the Germs cult are having a fight, and Darby's trying to break it up drunkenly. There's all this fun shit going on, all this drama, and Pat's just feeding back. And let me tell you something, Pat is good at feedback. It's awesome feedback. And I don't know if I've ever been to a show in my life where it's just feeding back and it sounds fucking cool. Later, I started going, feedback, like, you guys put feedback at the beginning of your songs, feedback's awesome. And Pat would feedback for like a minute, and then finally they'd be ready. The drama would be over. Nobody gave Darby a beer. Click, 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 click. Launch into No God. And you start to go like, all right, punk rock rules. Punk rock fucking rules. And I had quit rock music. I was studying classical music. And you know what? Classical music, when you study in college, it's kind of dead. It's not, I was like, I wanted to learn from the best. I had a harmony teacher in college, and you know what? The guy was making a record with Brian Eno. He was saying, oh, you got to learn all this stuff from, Chopin. You got to learn all these different harmonies, techniques. You got to learn all these chords. But really, no one cares about that anymore. I'm doing an ambient record. His name was Harold Budd, and I'm doing an ambient record with Eno, and we don't give a crap about that. So there are a few teachers, but they weren't even up to jazz. They're just a dead trying to preserve the past. And there were a few kids there that, like when I got in Screamers, like a year later, they're like, you're in the Screamers? Like the people studying the classical music, they could sense. So that where I was trying to go I was trying to go from the rock music, I was trying to go up a level, and I was actually going back. Because really the greatest music on the planet right then was the Deadbeats, the Weirdos, the Screamers, and the Germs. And the Sex Pistols were, in England it was so important. Rock music, I mean, it's true. The Beatles, some of them, they did get really political for a while. And that's kind of where it had lost it a little bit. Bands like Yes were studying the spirit, which is a really beautiful and interesting thing to study. Bowie was studying identity, which became a huge, important concept. It was super important in postmodernism. What Bowie was studying was really advanced, but it didn't really hit the mainstream for another fucking 20 years. But he was first starting to go, you guys have two genders. Is that really how it is? What if I choose not to be either gender? Nowadays, that's a conversation we have all the time. At that time, that was really groundbreaking. So Bowie was doing that, and then the Sex Pistols were going, look, you destroyed the economy in the Second World War. Everybody was talking about being on the dole. You know what that was? You give a government handout. Like, I'll take it. What's the problem? But they were like, the dole sucks. You can barely live in the dole. We would like jobs. They were actually mad because they didn't have jobs, which is odd. I wish nobody had to have a job, But anyway, so they really brought back this, the people that in the 60s, they got all this fucking money. All those rock stars got all this money. And nothing fucks up art like money. It is so hard to stay important, because you don't want to lose what you got. You want to keep, and you're a kid, you've already said your best shit. And now it's like you start repeating yourself, and it's just fucking hard. And that's why I say the people that did that many great albums, it's fucking hard. And by 1977, those bands had tried to put out 10 albums, and they were sucking. And incredibly, music can always reinvent itself. It can always be born in this new way. Now, maybe not so much. Now, I feel bad for everybody, because now it's about, the new way is computers doing it for you or something. I don't know. I guess now the new way is really truly being able to connect with an AI so much that AI speaks with your voice. And then someone will say, well, that's bullshit. And I'm like, no, it's not bullshit. That is my voice that I use that thing to create with. And then have a voice that's really important and that really matters. That makes people listen and go like, fuck, I'm going to change my life. That makes a MAGA go, you know what? This music is making me say, I'm over it. It makes a person that fucking has 75 pairs of shoes in their fucking closet go, you know what? I've been living my life wrong. They hear this music and they've been told 1,000 times, you are living your life wrong because you're destroying the fucking earth. And the future generations are going to be fucked because of your shoes and because you eat fucking cows and because you hop on a plane every other week, all that shit. And someone hears your music, maybe it was made by AI, and they finally go, you know what? This is bullshit. Why do I do this? Why do I do this? They're right. And that's what happens with music sometimes. Sometimes music reaches you so deeply that, you know what? I want to help those fucking people that are on the streets insane, and there's not enough doctors and social workers to take care of them, and all they can do for their lives to have any worth is to smoke crack, because that's the only thing that makes them feel. And I'm set for life. I am set for life. I'm listening to this music, and it's so profound, and it touches me so deeply that I'm going to change. That's the goal, I would say. And then there's just entertainment, which is fine. Machitana and our record, we worked so hard. She wanted to write a record about Roz. She wanted to do a music using classical instruments, which I thought was a terrible idea. She wanted to do an album, her last sort of farewell to Roz. Not an album, 3 songs. So I started writing, and it started coming out. And it's like, wow, this is coming out good. And we keep going. I'm like, what are we writing about? What are we trying to say? And we talk for fucking hours because we're like 65-year-old punk rockers. And Darby and fucking Roz fucking killed themselves when they're in their 20s. They must have been fucking off base somewhere, But we put them on such a pedestal because they were so brilliant. They were such geniuses. But they were kind of full of shit because, if they were full of shit. They were in such pain. They could not drop their egos enough to get help because there's help. And there's a lot of people in a lot of pain, and they survive. And they decided, well, we're going to be martyred rock stars. God bless you. Thank you. It's a great story. But what if you're not going to do that? And we really thought about it. And we thought, we might not have been as great as Roz and Darby to start, but we kept working. If you keep working and you look at what you've done over your whole life, you can eventually surpass your idols. That was kind of our message. Don't fucking kill yourself. Take all that pain and just keep turning it into art and keep living. Like one of the things I couldn't figure out why I was in so much pain, why I was suffering so bad. I stopped doing drugs and alcohol. A crazy fucking thing to do. I mean, for me, I figured I'd do drugs and alcohol my whole life. Like, so we're talking about this stuff and we're like, I have people come in here and they're like a mess and they're like, I'm like, kind of like, like, why? And sometimes their answer will be like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, dude. And I'm like, okay, so that's 50 years ago. And you're still saying what your grandparents said is an excuse for lame-ass behavior. Can we invent something new? I mean, I get it. It's very cool. It's very hard to be cool when you're not like wasted and fucked up and doing stupid things, because that is romantic and badass. And being like not that way. So we were like struggling to figure out, well, what is, if you're not like that, if you're not like live fast, die young, and leave a good looking corpse, if you don't do that, because that's actually, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if you're not going to do that, can we think of some other alternatives? It's not as sexy, but that's what we're trying. That's what we're trying to explore. How about you don't live your life by a bumper sticker? You don't live your life by a philosophy that could be fit on a bumper sticker. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll fits. Live fast, die young, leave a good looking corpse. A little bit long for a bumper sticker, but it's on there. Maybe think about complexity. Maybe try to get, I don't know, maybe study. I don't know. It's hard, but not doing drugs and alcohol was a weird one. I think about the people who died. It starts like it makes me paranoid. I don't believe in any conspiracy theories, but you think about the people that either died by accident, murder, or suicide or overdose, and they're all leaders. And and the people that could have been leaders but just became drug addicts. And just fucking drug addicts, they're useless. They just become useless. I think if I was like a government that wanted to control my people, I would get the smartest ones to think being wasted was cool. I would tell them, oh, you're a rebel? You know what rebels do? They shoot heroin. Okay. You know what I mean? Convince them. If you're a rebel, drink all day long. That's rebellious, right? I've been listening to music, and I've been doing a couple things lately, listening to music. You go back to music and strip away the aura and just listen to it for what it actually is. And is it still good? And a lot of times it's just fucking stupid. It doesn't stand this test of time. It's just lame ass. And then I was like, okay, now I realize I did that for a while. That's actually wrong, because music is of its time. And its aura is actually really important. So now, but it's just really hard to go back. If you weren't there, it's amazing you're able to do it. So one of the, like all these bands that I missed at the time, like the Misfits, the Clash, the Who, there's bands, I have a pretty strong sense that they're probably really good. I have this imagination that television was really good. That's one of the ones. The New York band that probably of all the bands I would have liked would have been them. Or that I just need to fucking just sit there and do a deep dive on their albums. Like I did a deep dive on Bob Dylan's 60s albums. Like I had his greatest hits albums growing up, and then I thought, Bob Dylan is probably, like the entire 60s was based on him. He did protests at music. Basically, everybody sang his songs in the streets and they ended the Vietnam War. The Beatles were influenced by him, the Stones, everybody. Before Bob Dylan was some cheesy rock and roll, let me promise you. They were lame, all of them. And Bob Dylan comes along, everybody gets very serious, and acid. So I said, I'm going to listen to Bob Dylan albums. And like, I was rewarded, dude. Same with Jimi Hendrix. I had Jimi Hendrix's greatest. So I'm like, this guy, there's something about this guy. Another guy who loved Bob Dylan. I'm going to deep dive these Jimi Hendrix albums. I got them all. It's like, I was rewarded. I never did that with the Misfits or the Clash or the Ramones. I never did it with a bunch of those bands. So why did I start talking about that? Oh, aura. It's hard to go back. If I listen to those bands now from my perspective, I'm like, everybody did that shit better. A bunch of people came later and did that better. But what if nobody had done it? That's the aura. That was the aura of seeing the Deadbeats and the Germs the first time. Nobody's done anything like this. And that's what I would have had to see in the Ramones. Fucking great songs, leather jackets, fucking, I would have had to see it in the moment and not come afterwards and try to appreciate it. So I'm trying to stop talking shit because it always bites me on the ass. Well, you go in circles like, you're like really stupid and then you get really smart. And then you realize, God, I was really stupid. And then you look back and I was really stupid and then still stupid. You keep learning stuff. Like I've learned political things. Like I was sure I knew what was right politically. And you're like, oh, God damn, I can't believe, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And that makes me really slow about politics. Like right now, our politics is super divided. My dad is super conservative. Obviously, everybody I love is like, thinks this is a nightmare we're living in and all this shit. And I try not to go super fast judging everything because I've been wrong. I've been completely wrong so many times. So I keep telling myself, I know my media is making it seem as bad as it could possibly be. And their media is telling them all, like, you're going to have to kill people like Paul with machetes soon. I know that's all going on in the media. And I know they're both just want me to keep clicking. So I don't really buy any of it. I know where my heart goes. So I'm really slow to believe politics because I've just been full of shit. I've been so wrong. And they want me to believe, and they're feeding me bullshit. Everybody's feeding me bullshit. So I'm trying to, I read this thing in this book over there the other day, and it was the best thing to do is to stand before the wonder of the universe and whisper, "What are you?" I love that. Stand before the wonder of the universe and whisper, "What are you?" So that's like my philosophy now. It's just like, all right, I'll put my old band glasses on. It says, letter from Paul Beam, also known as Bobby Pin, Darby Crash, to Paul. Candles burning, both ends bright, burning closely mind's eyesight. Mind's a clamp closing tight, thoughts a vision, loss of night. Savior circle 1,000 spins, life's immortal, I live from sins. Now I'll talk of waves and shock. When it happens, we'll interlock. I am, underlined, you, and you are free. Death step dance on a windy sea, falling trees and humble bees, life's a kiss and God is thee. That could go on and on. It's just lunatic ramblings. It's got no use. I don't know why I do it when I don't. Maybe it shows fear. Like everything else, kill me. Why? I don't care. Sorry about this note. My head's a mess right now. Like usual. Maybe when it's better, I'll write another. See you on 7. What a lie. Just my future, a time to cry. All I've got to offer is a little bit of inner air. Stand by me, and I will set you free. Don't trust me. I'm the devil's biggest drain. I'm the Satan of the sages. I'm here to ruin your game. Love, Paul. Does he sound suicidal? Sounds like he's going to do it, doesn't he? Megalomania, deep depression, and terrible poetry. I'm glad he got better.
That's wonderful, man.
That was great. Thank you so much. Thank you.